And I came in here and I was like walking toward here and somebody ran out, but they kind of turned the corner in the kitchen before I could see, and I didn't really know what happened. And they had like some sort of papers or something and I just went into the garage and stuff like looked moved around. With the whole garage fire, people do say that the cover up could be worse than the crime.
Who was it?
Spike the Pike.
Somehow got tangled up in the chain.
The guy down at the end of the street, his name was Tennessee Slim.
Look at the dates. Look at the dates of when Jimmy Hoffa went missing.
Probably the Mafia.
God knows what really happened. They might have seen a unicorn.
Lori killed Jimmy.
Did someone say truffles?
Mother, no, you're doing this.
Did Papa Jack ever know anybody that was involved in illicit business?
Oh, yeah.
Like family members, or? All right, so you're raising your eyebrow.
Hello there. On this episode of Bologna Unsolved, Paul and I will take you on a journey back to 1980. Ronald Reagan is running for president. Kids were playing Pac-Man and watching Magnum P.I. Teens were throwing away their bell-bottoms and listening to the Police on their new Walkman. And Mary Beth Bologna was graduating high school. People were fired up for the summer of 1980. What Farmer's Almanac predicted an extremely hot summer. And in this explosive time, something would happen to the Bologna household that would keep people guessing for 39 years. A fire so destructive that Uncle Jim's bicycle repair shop would never return profit again. On that Tuesday morning, a fire started in the garage. And there was no confirmed explanation on how it was started until two young dashing detectives walked on the scene.
Our journey to find the truth started in Plymouth, Michigan.
What do you know? Okay, I'm gonna be honest, not very much.
After coming up short in Michigan, we took our talents back to D.C. to interview some other cousins.
We just had a question. We just want to know if you know anything about these garage fires.
No, I have no idea about anything of the garage fire.
My lawyers have told me that I really shouldn't make any sort of direct comments about the fire.
I don't really know much. I wasn't around back then. So all I know is what people have told me. So it's a lot of hearsay.
But
from what we've been told, the garage fire happened. All right, so what do you want to know?
Just everything.
When we were kids and Uncle Mike used to come visit, he always brought fireworks because he had to drive. I think the reason was because he had to drive through Indiana, and Indiana just had very lax fireworks.
well, we're okay with that story right now.
All right. Well, I don't know about you guys, but if I was having a good time, I would leave work and go home to light some fireworks off. That sounds kind of fun to me. So, I mean, who knows who really set that fire? Have you guys seen True Detective? Antonin hypnotized Uncle Paul to light the fire that burned down the garage. I'm trying to encourage you guys to look beyond the surface, because the surface for so long now has been there was Uncle Paul that set this fire, and in my heart I just don't believe that's what happened. So sometimes people say crazy things like there's a bunch of parallel universes. The cousin was cool looking college. The answer is yes, guys. I was pretty cool. I guess all I'm saying is that he is a suspect.
So Uncle Paul pinned it on himself accidentally.
That documentary makes you say what?
It doesn't seem to be a fact.
What do you consider hearsay a fact?
Goodbye, Jack.
What do you remember from that day?
What do I remember, Paul? It's more like what I can't forget. People think they know what happened that day, but they have no idea. And Paul, when I say it goes all the way to the top, I mean it does. I'm talking about Jim Bologna. James, if we're being formal. See, Jim's bike shop that he was running out of the garage was actually a front for a marijuana business he was running with Father Dick. They would take money from the collection basket, buy the seeds, grow it secretly in a patch in Oma's garden where she couldn't reach because of weeds, and then they would take that, they would sell to the neighborhood kids. Jim would ride around on the bikes pushing it. They would take all their profits and head down to the boxcar or the merry-go-round to enjoy root beer floats and creamsicles. It all seemed to be working out perfectly for both of them until Mrs. Heine found out they were pushing, and she knew that she had to protect her business. So what she did, she gave a bunch of matches to the most unreliable member of the Bologna family.
After the cousins proved to be useless, we went to find out information from the siblings, starting with where people were that day.
Well, you know, I'd gone over to my friend's house, Jesse, and we were tie-dyeing.
Papa was already at work.
I was about to graduate from high school, and I had gone over, I think, to the high school for some sort of like practice for graduation or something like that.
Yeah, so I lived that morning to get paid.
I was at work, and I worked that summer at the township, whatever, the sewer department.
And I was upstairs getting ready for work.
I was at home with Uncle Paul and we were watching cartoons.
Well, my recollection is that we were sort of cleaning up the house for some purpose.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we're all running crazy.
We now know that Aunt Janine, Aunt Ann, and Uncle Paul were all there that day.
Now let's move into what happened that morning.
Janine and Paul were sitting in the family room watching Smurfs or some cartoon. I came downstairs and I thought I heard like a sound in the garage, and I thought maybe that Janine and Paul were doing what they were supposed to do. So I walked through that utility room. So at the last second, I kind of thought, well, that's weird. What's the sound I hear in the garage? Mm-hmm. I had my hand on the garage door, and fortunately, before I opened it, I saw smoke coming out from under the door, so I realized it was the fire, so I didn't open up the door.
The fire department came soon after, putting out the fire and questioning members of the family. After everyone there denied having any involvement, the fire and sheriff's department went on to their investigation. According to Township Fire Chief Larry Groth, experts were able to determine that the fire started under a workbench in the garage. Yet, quote, "There's nothing there to explain how it ignited."
Further pursuance of old records yielded no results, as the Plymouth District Library did not have any newspaper articles from the years 1976 to 1982, and the Wayne County Sheriff's Department and Township Fire Department did not hold police records from 40 years back if there were no recorded injuries or casualties, with the only expert source facts being that the fire started around 10:30 a.m., 3 Bologna children were home, and the fire started under a third garage workbench. Let's get into the theories. So what was under the workbench that started the fire?
Well, back in those days, Uncle Jim ran a bike shop in the third garage, and he placed the oily rags he used to clean the bikes in a barrel underneath the workbench.
The first question is, what else was in the barrel?
There was like charcoal at the bottom of it. That's what it was. The stupid part of it, to put really rags on top of charcoal, but that's a bad idea.
Okay, gotcha, okay. Now that we know what was in the barrel the fire started in, is it really possible for the fire to combust from nothing?
We called up the cousin with the most experience in causing unwanted fires.
In terms of oily rags, those definitely can catch fire.
Okay.
If you you're finishing something or you have oil on the rags and you ball it up and you throw it on the ground, it oxidizes very slowly and it doesn't get rid of all that heat. So eventually it just starts getting hotter and hotter until it actually catches.
How long would that process take for it to?
Maybe between like 10 and 40 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take right away. It takes at least 15 or 30 minutes, I would say. I've heard people, leaving it overnight and, they'll come back and it's burned down.
Wow.
It's definitely 30 minutes or maybe even an hour.
So let's discuss the validity of this theory. The combination of oily rags and charcoal is a dangerous one, which explains why the bucket would heat up and catch fire quickly. Additionally, it was a very hot summer that year, so heat trapped inside the garage would have given a more likely chance of combustion. Finally, the balled up oily rags have caused fires in the past, as Alex has confirmed, giving more validity to the idea of spontaneous combustion from oily rags. However, experts didn't officially support this theory. And out of all the days it could have combusted that summer, it was barely 60 degrees Fahrenheit around 10 a.m. on June 17th. Additionally, the second theory may prove this all to be wrong, assuming you believe in it. "12 years after the fire, at a Bologna family gathering, Uncle Paul confessed to Papa Jack and others that he was playing with matches that day and threw them into the same barrel that was said to be the source of the fire. Despite letting out a secret he'd been seemingly keeping for over a decade, many members of the family were in disbelief and thought other factors were at stake."
This is Uncle Paul's story.
And what Uncle Paul says is he was out here.
Face the camera.
Well, he was out here, and if you pan down to this, there was a pan down a little bit, pan down. There, look at this pile. Look at this big. Look at this thing. There was a some version. This smells bad in here. Some version of a bin that Uncle Jim had been storing. He had been storing. Oh, my throat hurts. He had been storing. What he writes. Can we finish the rest of this inside? Let's go inside.
Continue.
Go? Okay. So, as I understand it, Uncle Paul says he was out there playing with matches, and he maybe got startled when Ann came to let him know that she was headed off to work or something, and said, "Hey, get in here, I'm headed off to work." And so he rushed in, and he says he dropped some partially smoking matches in this pile of oily rags and coal that Uncle Jim, where he would be working on fixing bikes. And that's where Uncle Paul thinks the fire started.
Oh, absolutely. I was playing with matches, and we were trying to clean up for, I think it was Aunt Mary's graduation party, and Ian or Aunt Mary were like, opened the door like, "Paul, what are you?" Because I was goofing off. I was playing with matches, so I went, and I threw him into this barrel.
But if I recall, I believe the firemen said it was spontaneous combustion.
No, they said that if there was no other
cause, that's what
other
it was.
potential causes,
then it would have.
And I was not about to fess up to the fact that I was playing with matches and threw it in that little container.
So here's what's going for Uncle Paul. He confessed to it, and no one really has hard evidence against his case. His story also partially checks out, and let me explain. Ann, Aunt Janine, and Uncle Paul's testimonies are all fairly different, but the one consistency is that Ann was yelling orders at them in the morning. I feel like this is noteworthy because after all these years, his one reason for tossing the matches was that he heard Ann yelling and quickly fled the scene. It seems if he was making something up, wouldn't that part of the story vary each time he told it? Now for what's going up against him. He did confess years after the fact, with no real significance of the timing. There was also no report of a match found at the scene. Although, in a fire that burned up most of the third garage, it is possible that the matches turned to ash in the time before the fire was put out. Additionally, Uncle Paul is a Bologna, with hyperbolized storytelling in his blood, potentially making this theory a load of BS.
A newspaper from September 1980 stated there had been a, quote, unusually high incidence of arson in the past 6 months, beginning in February with the fire on Penniman Avenue where 11 shops were destroyed. And although police had theories, no arrests were made. In early June, the police and fire department created an arson control hotline to submit information to. Later that month, all on the same night, 2 garages and 3 mailboxes caught on fire, all expected to be lit on fire by the same group or person. Then in September, there was an attempted arson of an Ann Arbor trail shop. Although the police believed the 3 arsons were not related, They did believe the first arson could have inspired the others.
Paul and I refuse to rule out the theory that the Bologna garage could have been burned down by someone outside of the family. In fact, Aunt Mary and Aunt Janine remember a suspicious kid they had never seen before, rolling past the garage on his bike and asking them questions about the fire while the family was cleaning the garage in the following days.
Hey, I was just coming along in my bicycle, saw the flames. What happened? What's up with the fire?
For this theory, the string of unsolved arsons in 1980 gives it plenty of likelihood. The mysterious kid that came back to the house multiple times asking questions could be a potential suspect. Additionally, the Bologna family were hot targets, as they were star students in the neighborhood, and Oma and Papa were large figures in the Plymouth Township. Any competitive large family could have been jealous and desired to be the head honchos on Appletree Drive. To go against this theory, the windows of the garage broke outwards due to the excess gas, rather than inwards due to a break-in, making it more likely that if someone caused the fire, they would have already been inside the house. Also, who would want to harm the innocent Bologna family?
The virtue of me playing with matches in the garage, that was the real story, or whether, let's say, somebody else. But there's one particular Bologna sibling that also might be responsible for the actions that I have been accused of. I was just the fall guy for somebody else who has essentially driven half across the United States to shoot explosives and rockets into the air. Who has head chance for interest in chemistry and pyrotechnics, who really needed some protection. And since I was a juvenile, they couldn't be charged with a major crime.
There's only one person who fits this description.
There's only one Bologna sibling who drove across the U.S. to find and set off fireworks.
When we were kids and Uncle Mike used to come visit, he always brought fireworks.
There's only one Bologna sibling who was a chemist growing up and performed experiments in the house.
I remember Uncle Mike making a stink bomb once to kind of put in a party that Aunt Ann and Aunt Mary were having in the garage.
And there's only one Bologna sibling who has consistently believed Uncle Paul's story from the start, possibly to shift the blame off himself.
The only evidence we have is an admission of guilt, which is something like the highest form of evidence when you prosecute a crime, versus some theories.
Yes, we are saying Uncle Michael may have started the fire in the garage.
And may have forced Uncle Paul to make a false confession. For points for this theory, Uncle Paul now claims that he was the fall guy for someone else. Uncle Michael has a past involving chemistry sets and fireworks, a potential pyromaniac. Uncle Michael was also 19 at the time, while Uncle Paul was 15, and could be charged with a major crime. Finally, Uncle Michael is the only sibling to have consistently believed Uncle Paul since he confessed, which could show Uncle Mike's desire to keep the blame on someone else. However, there are some issues with this theory. For one, Uncle Michael is at work at the time the fire was discovered. There is also no testimony from anyone saying Uncle Michael pushed this Uncle Paul theory before 1992 when he confessed. And finally, Uncle Paul is a Bologna. We've learned a lot on our journey to discover the truth about the garage fire. Stories told have made us laugh and made us cry, but overall they've made us realize how perspectives can change over a lifetime.
For an event that happened nearly 40 years ago, we've uncovered a lot of information, some of which did not want to be uncovered. All four theories presented are plausible and backed up by facts. However, in the words of Uncle Paul,
or it could be total BS, I don't know.
Because I got a counterpoint. Look, because my mom, Aunt Ann, and Uncle Paul all said they
the three most trustworthy members of the family. We've turned off the camera.
I don't believe you. And clearly it's still on.
Considering that Uncle Paul is a marine biologist by trade, he seems like if he were going to destroy something, it would much more likely come with the power of the ocean or some sort of water.
I didn't know you were a chemist. Dang.
I study in my free time.
So you came in here and everything was just moved around, disorganized.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It used to be really organized in here. Like how I remember it, they always had like everything was in the right place. So it was like very confusing to see everything in disarray.
Back in the garage, some things have restarted. Where is he? Robert, do you know where he is?
I don't know.
He said he'd be here by now.
This guy told us to meet him here.
What are we supposed to do?
This.
It's like 20 minutes late. Uh-oh.
Did you guys come alone?
We think so. We think so.
What about that black sedan? Was it following you?
I don't.
Was it following you?
I don't know.
Jenkins, watch the back. Okay, I think we're safe. No mics? No mics?
No.
I'm like, Jenkins checks Robert for mics. All right. I'm glad you guys could meet us here today. Sorry, I had to make sure we're safe. The reason Jenkins and I asked you guys to meet us here today is because we think we know who Interviewer X is.